Marvin, welcome to the Deal Chronicles podcast. I appreciate you for making the time to join me in this early morning. So, yeah, I appreciate you for joining me today.
David, it's an honor to be here. It's not quite as early for me as for you, so thanks for being up Pacific time. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome, likewise. So, I know you spoke with Will and you told your wife, if I do this for 12 more months, I'm going to be dead. And that's quite a visceral thing. And I know you probably don't want to be, transported back, but can you take the audience a little bit into bringing where your mind space was, and yeah, just kind of like talking
Yeah,
about some of the miseries that was making you feel that emotion.
sure. So, all right, so that was probably, I don't know, the fall of 2010. So
Hmm.
I don't know, call it July, August, September, something like that. Um, and at that point, I was in my late 30s. Um, I completed a PhD in physics, which is as grueling as it sounds. um, and then I'd spent, kind of the balance of my career climbing the corporate ladder. I started out, in a great job at Texas Instruments, and then I
Hmm.
went to a software startup. And at that point, um, I was the chief operating officer for a large, you know, nine-figure software uh, enterprise software division
Hmm.
of a global company. And I was traveling 4 or 5 days a week, and my daughter was 3, and
Oh,
I was exhausted. My
mhm.
wife would say, you travel, you leave Sunday night, you come back Thursday evening, you go to the office here in Dallas on Friday, and by the time you get home, whenever you get home Friday night, you're completely, just
Just
fried.
drained,
And
right?
whatever tiny little bit of energy you have left over on the weekends, you
Mm.
give to Karis, and then you start getting depressed, kind of noon on Sunday because you've got to fly back out, and that was sort of our life. And so
Mm.
we were sitting at the dining room table. Karis, or my daughter, was asleep, and just sort of out of nowhere, I kind of looked at her and went, you know, babe, if I have to do this for another 12 months, I'm probably going to die.
Hmm.
And she said, I'm sorry, I'm probably going to be dead. And she said, you mean more dead than you are now?
Oh, geez.
And I said, no, I mean actually dead. Like you'll have a funeral, you'll collect the life insurance, you'll
Right,
be fine financially, but
right.
I won't be here anymore, kind of
Mm.
dead. And she paused for a couple seconds, and I'll never forget it. She looks me straight in the eye and she says, well, then you have to get out.
Hmm.
And that was sort of that was the beginning. uh, I kind of accidentally resigned a few weeks later. I mean,
Accidentally.
literally, like I had no plan. I just
Yeah.
resigned, and that was what started the sort of the
The
ETA journey.
journey. That's
Yeah,
that's incredible. Yeah, I mean it's kind of like that was your Phoenix moment where you just had to burn it all or hit rock bottom almost in order for you to start your own hero's journey.
well, I don't know about hero, but it was definitely the
Right,
yeah,
there's more troubles
yeah,
that we're gonna
and I think
discuss.
that's part of the yeah. I talk to people all the time, and
Hmm.
you hear stuff about you have to have a why, or if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you really got to understand what your reasons are. It can't just be
Right.
about money or whatever, and all of that, right? And yeah, I think for me, I had to get to the point where all the money and the prestige and the
Mm.
whatever of being kind of a C-level executive at a public company just didn't add up to
Mm.
you know satisfaction in my life, fulfillment,
Right.
whatever, right? So
Hmm.
that was my moment. I think every entrepreneur has one,
Hmm. Do
unless you
you
just start
think
something in college. But
that's right? Um, Do you think at that moment, your why has changed? Because it seems like maybe when you were working up that corporate ladder, I also remember you would recall that you get bored really quickly. That's what ETA is saying in the power coding business for multiple decades, doing two turnarounds was very something that you didn't even think about yourself because you switched again from Texas Instruments to the software implementing like ERP softwares. Do you think you were always kind of tenacious in figuring out kind of your next journey or next mission, or kind of like I'm trying to get at what was your why for staying in corporate, I guess, like outside of the paying your bills, let's say. What is it? Was it the status, the prestige in the beginning?
No, I no. I mean, fortunately, it wasn't anything quite that prosaic, but it wasn't any better. It was. I didn't know what else to do. Right.
Mm,
So, I'm the son of academic parents. My father was a professor. Both of my grandfather, or one of my grandfathers, was a professor. Uncles. The whole the whole family is just an academia, right? And
mm,
so this idea of, I mean, like literally, I still remember in my early 20s while I was getting my PhD, someone sitting me down
mm,
and going, okay, Marvin, you understand a little bit about math. You're a physicist, right? So let me explain. It's revenue, like that's the money that comes in, and then you have these expenses and you subtract those, and then we call
right.
that thing profit. Like someone literally explained the equation to me,
Oh wow.
and I was like, oh, is that how business works? Like, light
Yeah.
bulb moment. Oh
Right.
gosh, that's how companies make profit. Like, so I mean, starting from there, it's a bit of a journey. And
Mm,
um, the thread, I guess, the a significant problem that I had sort of in this in the middle of 2010 was
mm,
I'd tried so many different things in my career. I'd reinvented myself so many times, and I picked off so many different opportunities
mm,
that I had this really random resume. Like, okay, fine, I was the chief operating officer of whatever, but
mm,
I didn't have this really obvious track record of
mm.
things that I'd done to get there that
Right.
sort of clearly said, all right, well, Marvin's next step is X,
Mm,
right? I mean, and so I was realizing, other people at my level are getting headhunted, they're getting
mm,
recruited, they have networks, they know
right.
people, like all the things, right?
Mm,
And I didn't. And so um, the good part of it was I'd done a ton of different stuff. Like I'd gone and gotten an MBA
mm,
just by doing a whole bunch of roles in corporate America and seeing a whole
right.
bunch of different things. But I had this absolutely unemployable um,
It's a resume.
resume.
Say.
And so the only option left to me was, to go be my own boss because no one
Right.
else was going to employ me. At
Mm,
least, I mean, literally almost to do anything, much less at the kind of salary and bonus structure that I was, earning at that job. So,
right.
um,
Because yeah,
but
back
the
in
other,
that. Go ahead. Sorry.
no, sorry, the other piece of it was the thing that always really just kind of chafed me was
Mm,
um, this and in the beginning it was sort of an intuitive feeling, and then I figured out what it really was, and it was I was building equity for somebody else. Like I didn't
mm,
own any equity, and so whether they rated me a 5 or a 2, so long as they didn't fire me, my paycheck was more or less the same size, right?
right. Mm,
And whether I flew 1 day a week, 0 days a week or 5 days a week, my paycheck was the same size.
mm.
Didn't matter how many volleyball games my daughter played in that I missed. And it was like, okay, I've got to do this for myself. Like, if I'm going to work this hard and have this kind of work ethic and this kind of dedication and solve these kinds of problems, then when it's successful, I've got to earn an outside reward. And the only way to do that is own
Wow.
it, right?
Mm,
So that was the realization that I'd come to. I just didn't know how to do it.
mm.
Right. And so that's why I quit with no plan, because I had
Yeah.
absolutely no idea
Just diving
what to
right
do.
into it.
So,
That reminds me of the quote from Nassim Taleb. He says the three most harmful addictions are heroin, carbohydrates, and a monthly salary because it keeps you hooked.
I have I haven't heard that one, but I would agree. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, and then that kind of makes kind of the thread line very clear of because you were, even though you didn't know, I feel like it's always hindsight. It's 2020 because you had a knack for always being kind of, I guess, interested in whatever you were doing within corporate, at least outside looking in. And then when you did jump in, you also had a wonderful partnership that I wanted to kind of delve deeper into. And his name is, I believe, it's David
David,
Geffenford.
David Bridgeforth, yeah.
Bridgeforth. So yeah, you knew, at this moment that you knew in your bones that you had to own a business, and most corporate refugees doesn't really have that clarity. They just know that they're miserable. But you took the leap just without a plan, and then called David up, and obviously now you've been partners for over almost like nearly 2 decades, I believe, like more than
Yeah,
15 years,
yeah,
doing
15
multiple
years.
businesses and eventually an exit. What would you say is kind of like the key component? I mean, I'm sure relationships, there's multitude of components, which makes the chemistry, and also the fact that you guys had complementary skill sets without kind of recognizing it, in first glance.
Um, so I mean, I guess it's a bunch of things. I mean, I think you hear people say it, that a business partnership is a business marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, I think that I don't think that's overstating the case. Like, um, I see people all the time who sort of form partnerships with people that they don't know very well or whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they work out fine. Um, but I think it's one thing if it's kind of an eat what you kill sort of a thing. Like if you're just joining a law partnership or an accounting partnership or whatever, like, okay. Um, but if you're buying a business with someone like that, you're effectively having a baby. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna, that thing's gonna grow up and leave, to go to college at some point, you hope, um, and get their own job.
Right.
But for some period of time,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be spending all of your time together, and you're going to have to, face a lot of adversity, and you better have some um, methodology or agreement or approach or something to how you're going to handle conflict and make
Mm-hmm.
decisions. And, I mean, kind of like a marriage, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so for David and I, it was that we shared faith, and um, so at the end of the day, we were um, both followers of Christ, and
Mm-hmm.
so there was this kind of shared morality, if you will, or kind of set of rules.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then the other thing is, and we kind of borrowed this from our marriages, but um, we agreed that we would make all the sort of key or important decisions. We called it in agreement. Like we weren't going to move until we had an agreement, right, between
Mm-hmm.
ourselves. And there were some kind of parameters around the agreement, like it could be, oh, fucking okay, fine, right? It couldn't be that kind of an agreement. Like
Right.
it,
We're
it,
all in.
yeah, like okay, I don't necessarily. I think that there's an alternate path which could be better, but you've convinced me that this path, is acceptable,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm releasing my right in the future to say anything about this path, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
coming into agreement with you that this is where we're going,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's sort of that, I don't know, the Marine Corps have it, and the Marine Corps says, you have an obligation to dissent,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which means, hey, in the room, no one's wearing their their rank,
Mm-hmm.
and we're just
Right.
going to put it all out on the table, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when the commanding officer makes a decision,
You
that's the
follow.
decision, and we go,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was that same kind of idea of, hey, we're going to argue and whatever until we make a decision, and then when that decision's made, everybody's in agreement and we go, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's been very successful, and been married for 24 years. Like everybody who's been married for 24 years, it's not perfect, right? But
Right.
we've made all of the kind of critical decisions the same way in agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how we ran our partnership.
Yeah, I've often heard that in relationships, it's really important the ability to compromise on both ends, and it seems like you guys have carried that out within all the ups and downs because
Yeah.
without compromising,
Yeah.
if one person
And I
has
think
such
the
a
other
like,
thing is
Mhm.
we were really clear on lanes, right? On who did what.
Right.
And I'll never forget it. So this is like, I don't know. I guess it's literally the first day
Mhm.
that we owned this powder coating operation in Tampa, Florida.
Yep.
And so it's like July 1st or 2nd, right? In Tampa, Florida. Okay. So it's a balmy, 95 degrees, with 97% humidity. And
Oh boy.
for reasons that absolutely pass understanding, we've decided to show up to this operation in business attire, right?
Okay. Oh. As
And
one does.
business, yeah, as one does when there's no air conditioning.
Right.
And I remember, it's a 25,000 square foot facility, pretty open, and we're probably standing, I don't know, 25 feet inside the building, kind of sort of in the corner, sort of watching the operation, and the little office is behind us, right? And I remember I wasn't actually watching at this point. I was kind of looking down, and I'm looking at the loafers that David is wearing.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And thinking how ridiculous we must look to our new employees. Fortunately, we weren't wearing ties. Thank God.
That would have just blew it out of the water when the ties were here.
And David elbows me in the ribs, and I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Do you know anything about QuickBooks?"
Yeah, I remember.
And I'm like, "Well, a little." And he says, "Great. Go in the office and figure out what Janine's doing. I got it out here with Mike." Mike and Janine were the owners, right?
That's so good.
That's how we figured out our lanes.
Right.
I was responsible for everything in the office, and he was responsible for everything out here.
Yeah.
By the way,
which is the
polar
opposite, right?
The bank had written it into the docs that, right, he was president and CFO, and I was the COO because that had been my title in corporate America, right?
Right.
Which, if we'd pursued that, we would have. I don't think you would have measured the lifespan of our business in anything more than a second. I had no business being the ops guy,
right,
in a powder coating operation, and he could never. I mean, he would not have gotten the first invoice issued out of QuickBooks. It never would. We still would not have sent an invoice.
That's so
God love
funny.
him.
That's so funny. That's so good. I'm just picturing him in his loafers, just like, all right, time to get our hands dirty.
Yeah, well, one of my favorite things about that deal was, that was the last time we ever wore business attire to our business. But you'd have vendors, so we had this ramp, right, out the front of the building, and that you'd back a truck up, and we kept the office door locked because there was never anybody in the office, and we didn't want people just walking into the office. So it was hysterical, right? David and I would be working the line with our guys, right, or whatever, right? We'd be quote unquote on the floor, and out of the corner of your eye, you'd catch that someone had pulled up, right, and you'd ignore them, and they'd go and they'd walk up the stairs to the office door. Right, that said powder coating on it, blah, blah, whatever. And they'd try the door, and it was locked. And they'd sort of look confused, and they'd kind of look around. They'd look for a bell, which there wasn't one, and all of the things, right? So they'd sort of sheepishly walk back down the stairs, and they'd kind of look around. And then they'd see the ramp with the door open, right?
Right.
They'd be like, okay, well, maybe we'll try that. So they'd walk up the ramp. At this point, I mean, we knew all of our customers. We knew all of our vendors. We knew all the people we wanted to talk to. and they'd kind of come up the ramp and they'd stand just inside the door, sort of looking around like, surely there must be someone in charge. Someone must be running this asylum, right?
Yeah.
And none of our guys would talk to him, right? They were all trained. They just kept working. And either David or I would eventually sort of wander over. We're sweaty. We're covered in dirt, right? We're in shorts and a t-shirt. We look exactly like our guys,
Like a blue collar
right?
worker, yeah.
We look just, you're indistinguishable from our employees,
Foremen, right?
And can I help you? Yeah, I was hoping to talk to the owner. Really? Yeah. Can I talk to the owner? No. We never lied to him, right?
Right.
Can I talk to the owner? No. You can't.
You're talking right in front of me.
Well, are they here? Yeah, they're around somewhere. Well, the office door is locked. Yeah, they keep it locked.
So that's you talking directly to them. Oh, that's so good.
Well, we'll come back later. Okay, great. See you later. We go back to work. So that was how we ran it from then on.
Oh, that's so good. So you guys were really just, rolling up your sleeve, just getting on the factory floor.
Absolutely. And I think, and I could be wrong. Like, I mean, there's probably lots of people way smarter than me who would come in and go, man, you guys could have done, everything that you did in 9 years and, 9 months if you just, properly applied, the entrepreneurial operating system and, these 7 things that I learned in my MBA and all the stuff, right? And I'm not, they could very well be right. But I'm firmly convinced that as a small business owner, I'm talking about a small business. Like if your revenue is less than $10 million, if your EBITDA is less than $1.5 million or $2 million or whatever, right? Like you better be able to perform pretty much every operation in your business. Otherwise, some enterprising employee is going to be able to hold you hostage. Right?
Which that also did happen.
It happened to us. Right. Yeah, it absolutely happened to us.
Multiple times, actually.
Multiple times. Anything sort of nefarious aside, like you don't really understand how your business works unless you can do it, and you don't really understand how to optimize your business until you
understand
spend some time.
Right.
One of the stories about that, David bursts into the office. I'm trying to get invoices out or something, that's actually make us money, right? And he's like, today's the day. You have to learn how to powder coat today. I'm not putting up with so-and-so any longer, right? We had a painter. That's what we called the guys that applied the powder. We had a painter who was, trying to leverage us. We were kind of down a painter or whatever. And he's like, you have to learn and you're going to start today. Like, I don't care what you're doing, but you're going to go put on a clean suit and a respirator and you're going to learn how to powder coat today. And I did. And the next day he fired somebody.
So he knew. He already knew.
And I got to powder coat for the next 6 weeks while we hired and trained somebody new. But guess what? That experience, because my deal was we can run the line faster. Because however fast you run your conveyor is how much money you make per hour, right?
Right.
So it's all about, can we run it faster? And I was always, we can run this thing faster. Well, but I didn't have the experience standing there for 10 hours a day, putting powder on parts to know whether that was really true,
right,
or just theoretically true.
Just
like theoretically, it'll go faster, but how long does it actually take to powder coat these parts? Well, 6 weeks later, it's like, oh shit! Like, no, that's really hard. Like, producing a defect-free part at that line speed with our equipment is tough, right?
Right.
And so it just really informs all of the spreadsheet exercises,
Mm-hmm.
that you're going to go do as a business owner to try to eke out more profit or make more money or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to, the trap is that you stay stuck there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Learning how to do it, knowing how to do it, and then continuing to do it forever. Like if I was still in the booth powder coating,
Right.
3 years later, because I just had come to the conclusion, rightly or wrongly, that I was the best powder coater
Mm-hmm.
in the business,
Mm-hmm.
that would have been a huge mistake. But knowing
Right.
how to do it was hugely beneficial.
Because now you
Right.
could collect that information and then, change your assumptions on the back end of the financials to grow more
Right.
EBITDA per se.
When you also knew whether you had a good employee or,
Mm.
an overachiever or underperformer.
Right.
And I think it gives you some compassion for what it takes.
Mm.
Right. I mean, again, in our case, like, listen, powder coating at that line speed for an hour is very different than doing it for 10 straight hours.
Mm.
Right? It's really different.
Mm.
Okay, great. You get a 45-minute break for lunch, but otherwise, like,
Jeez. Yeah.
and doing it the first 3 hours of the day is different than doing it the last 3 hours of the day.
Oh, yeah.
Like, so there's all these nuances that you learn
Mm-hmm.
that help you make the world better for you financially, but also make the world better for your employees.
For sure.
Again, you have some compassion for what it is they're doing on a daily basis.
Right, because you've walked the walk.
Anyway, so I just tell people all the time who are buying a business, you
better roll up your sleeves and be willing to do the work.
The first thing on your to-do list is hire a general manager, I would move that way.
Right. Right. Especially if it's not, again, like 10 million in rev or it just doesn't make sense. Especially if you also have the concentration as you were kind of alluding to. So maybe that's kind of where we could pivot. So I think the audience, because I do have the general knowledge of how you got into this business, for the audience, essentially, you got into this powder coating business right after, by scouring, I believe, on Biz by Sell, you've scraped the entirety of Tampa and Florida, as one does. And I think at one point this business was kind of stale, and then David was the one that brought it up of like, hey, this is operationally run really well, and then you got into the LOI, and then that's how you acquired your first powder coating business.
So I guess the timeline is, so whenever I had the conversation with my wife about being dead, and then less than a month later resigning, and then the organization that I worked for asked me to stay and babysit a project for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was still employed for like 6 or 7 more months.
Right.
But had very little to do on a day-to-day basis. And so called David and we started looking for businesses. And the first agreement that we made was, he's not moving out of the Tampa Bay area and I'm not moving out of the Dallas area. Mm-hmm. And so that's where we're looking. All right. Mm-hmm. So we're geographically constrained. Obviously we're financially, limited by, we didn't understand that at that point at all, just to be clear. Didn't even know SBA loans. We were so clueless, David. Like, I didn't even know there was an SBA loan program, much less a 7A program. Like, no, absolutely none whatsoever. Right. So, but we have X amount of capital, and so at least theoretically, we understand there's some limit to what you can afford.
Given, as long as we know that.
Yeah, we had some concept of leverage.
Right.
And then the only other thing we did is we got out a big yellow legal pad, mm-hmm. and we wrote down a list of businesses that we were absolutely not going to,
delve into.
Right. No fast food restaurants, no clothing retailers.
Anything B2C.
No interior design business, mm-hmm. things that we knew we were really going to suck at. And we were willing to do anything else, right? So with that, and this is 2010, right? This is the end of 2010, right? There's no ETA community. There's no Acquiring Minds podcast. There's none of this stuff exists. And so the only place you're going to find a business for sale is Biz Buy Sell, right? Which, by the way, is orders of magnitude better today than it was back then. But yeah, and again, division of labor, right? David's like, I'll look at all the Tampa listings, you look at all the Dallas.
It's law. David's words are law almost.
So I was like, okay, great, it makes sense to me. And so he called. We found this business that was based somewhere in Tampa. That it was an online distributor of Harley Davidson parts.
Oh,
right. So
fascinating.
I didn't know what a Harley Davidson was. I don't really think. Certainly didn't own one or ride one. But heck yeah, we can distribute parts for them. Why not? Sounds like a great business. So we called the broker, who had the listing, and he said, "Oh yeah, no, that's a great business, but we're under LOI. Sorry, I just haven't updated Biz Buy Sell. But like all good brokers do, tell me what you're looking for." Right? And so we gave him our very detailed specs.
On the yellow legal pad, no hamburger shops,
anything
no
that's,
interior
right, anything that's not any of these, right? No bars, no restaurants,
right?
And he's like, "Well, I've got a business that I think is pretty good that you guys ought to look at." Well, great. So he showed us this powder coating business, and we thought it looked great too. I mean, it fit all of our criteria. It was the right size, blah blah blah. And so at sometime in early December, my wife and daughter and I flew out to Tampa, and we went and we visited the powder coating operation. And we walked out and we slept on it and woke up early the next morning, and David called and said, "Yeah, I don't see this one being for us." And I'm like, "Yeah, I kind of agree. Like it's a pretty big fight, whatever." And so we drove over to the business and we talked to the owners, Mike and Janine, and we said, "Guys, that we're respectfully, we're not going to move forward. Just wanted to tell you first, right?" So we did, and that was it. And I was driving somewhere New Year's Day, early in the morning on New Year's Day, and David called. It's like, "Bro, do you remember that powder coating business in Tampa?" I'm like, "Yeah." He said, I was talking to Brenda about it, his wife. I was talking to Brenda about it yesterday. I woke up this morning and I just really feel like the Holy Spirit says that we're supposed to go, revisit that one. I'm like, okay. I mean, I thought it was a great business, and I think potentially we could overcome, kind of the logistical issues. If it's still on the market, let's take another run at it. And so we called the broker back, and he's like, his name was Jim, and he's like, "Yeah, it hasn't sold." And we said, "Okay, well, we want to make an offer on it." So he sent us over a form LOI, and we filled it out, and so clueless.
Yeah, I was wondering why you're smirking. You're just
I don't
thinking
know
about
what I would do today if I got a form LOI from somebody on a business that I was trying to sell. But anyway, it was a little different world back then. But
right.
And next thing you know, we were under contract.
And what was the moment where David was a little bit skeptical of? Was it the logistical issues you were talking about?
Yeah, I think it was. How's Marvin going to live in Dallas and run his business? Like, I mean, the motorcycle part distribution business. Like, there was clearly sort of, even in 2010, there was clearly sort of a remote piece of it, and there was clearly sort of a, hey, we have a warehouse with employees piece, and like, it made some sense. Versus this was like, I mean, this business doesn't function without 15 people in the building. Right. So what's Marvin going to do? And he was always very sensitive to, his daughter's 7 years older than mine. So the reason they had relocated to Tampa was
it for IMG?
Yeah, his daughter was a tennis prodigy, and she was at IMG.
Right.
And so, Karis was 3 at that point. which make, Kennedy like 10 or 11.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's right. No, is she? Maybe she. No, I'm sorry. She's 9 years older than Karis. So
Okay.
Kennedy was like 12, and Karis was like 3.
Okay.
And so, anyway, he was just very sensitive to kind of the family situation and having a 3-year-old daughter and whatever.
Right.
And so, yeah, initially he just didn't see it.
Mm.
And I didn't see it clearly enough at that, point to push for it. So anyway,
but David found his conviction.
Yep. Two failed banks later, we finally got an SBA loan done.
And was this the time when you were learning about Rob's as well? Is it the second acquisition where you did Rob's?
No, bro. We had no money. Like, if it hadn't been for roll for business startup, we couldn't have.
Got it.
We couldn't have pulled it off.
Mm-hmm. And then a little bit about the financials for this first deal. I believe it was at around 700K SD, trading at a 3x multiple.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And did you guys go 50-50?
Yeah, 50. Well, that's another bit. We don't have to get into that. But that's another little bit of the story. But no, the bank forced us to be 51-49, which is a testament to my business partner. That he swallowed the 49 because of anyway. But no, it was, in every respect, it was 50-50. Except for technically,
just
there
on
was
paper.
a 1% difference in capital injected in the beginning. But yeah, we used the rollover for business startup mechanism to, and just for your listeners who don't necessarily know what that is, it's pretty simple. A 401k can invest in a C Corp, right? So what you do is you form your own 401k. You roll your 401k or your IRA into this 401k that you created. So now that thing has the value of your 401k in it in cash, right? And then you create a C Corp that's your acquisition vehicle. And the 401k buys shares in the C Corp, right? So now the C Corp has cash, right? And then the C Corp uses that cash as the down payment against whatever loan you're getting, right? In our case, it was an SBA loan. And so whatever, round numbers, David and I each rolled $250,000 from a 401k from a personal 401k into our corporate 401k. That gave us $500,000. That $500,000 was then invested. It was the down payment against, call it $2 million loan that we got for the business. And that was how we did it.
Was this from the recommendation of your broker that you found?
Yes. Yeah, I have to give, again, I have to give credit to the broker. At that point, there were, Guidant was not new, but they were advertising heavily. So I'm not sure we wouldn't have come across this on our own, but he definitely pointed us in that direction. He also connected me with the SBA loan broker that helped us find the loan, who is still in business today, and I still use. Like, I'm referring my client, not my clients, but the buyers. When I work with a buyer who's buying one of the companies that I represent, I refer him to Steve.
Still to this day.
To this day, he's still doing the same business, doing a great job. So, yeah. So that's how we did it. And then on the backside, since we were a C Corp and we held it for 5 years, and it was a qualified small business, we were able to do the 1202, qualified small business exemption when we exited.
That's millions in tax savings, I believe, right? It's up to 10 million.
Yeah, no, it avoids capital gains tax on the first 10 million in gain per shareholder. So
that's incredible. Absolutely
Yeah.
amazing. You kind of just backward into it. But I think the biggest fear that people have with that method is the complexity and also the fact that there's double taxation, if I recall. But I think you mentioned that you guys were able to just let it flow through bonuses and then just paid personal tax for that for using
Yeah.
logs.
So, so again, it doesn't work for every single business the same way, obviously,
Hmm.
but in our business, uh, there was a pretty sizable fixed asset component.
Hmm.
So for the first few years, we had a depreciation shield,
Mm.
right? And so we were just able to take accelerated depreciation against the earnings, and so that avoided um, the corporate income tax
Mm.
initially, and then um, for the next few years, the profits were such that we were just able to kind of bonus it out. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, we paid ordinary income tax, obviously, on it. But, um, we weren't in a situation where we had big reinvestment issues or anything like that. And so, and then post merger, um, again, we had some depreciation shields, and then we didn't own that kind of merged business really for long enough that we had to do a tremendous amount of planning. But yes, eventually,
Hmm.
um, you could end up with, yeah, or if it's a pure goodwill deal,
Hmm.
right? Like, if I don't know that this would be, I've never really analyzed it, but I'm not sure that this would necessarily be the approach for, like a B2B SaaS,
Uh,
deal
right.
or whatever. If it's all
It's,
goodwill, you might start getting bit pretty early.
hmm.
So,
Yeah, something to
but
definitely to be aware of. That
yeah,
there's more resources, especially now, more than ever. In addition to the biz buy sell access and
yeah,
resources.
yeah, yeah, way
So
more.
another thing you mentioned was I believe you had some friends. His name was there were Jim and Robert. They had the typical Naval Academy HBS story, and I think you were having a conversation where they had an opportunity after your the power coding business as you were running it, just getting in the front lines, getting there, saying no to people who were just coming up asking for the owners. Um, there was a time where they had a business that was losing, I believe it was like around $50,000 to $75,000 a month. Can
Yeah,
you share a little bit about that story? Specifically,
sure.
the component where there was a moment where there were customers leaving, like because they were outsourcing, and I have another kind of like specific question because there was a moment that I don't think the audience caught, but there was 48 hours that you worked straight, and that was when I listened to it. It was shocking. I was like, "There's no way." So I want to learn more
Yeah,
about that.
yeah. So yeah, I had a couple of friends, like you said, they're both HBS grads, and they had pursued um, sort of the funded search
Hmm.
approach after they got out of business school. Again, sort of back before. I mean, they had to be some of the very first guys,
Wow,
you know, to do that.
the
Like I think
pioneers.
they might have taken one of the very first HBS ETA classes.
Oh,
Like, I mean,
interesting.
that's kind of like the timing. Like the book wasn't there yet, but maybe the class was being taught or
Hmm.
whatever. Like anyway, so they were very very early on in this, and they had been and were being really successful at it. And they'd sort of evolved into being independent sponsors. They were kind of on their third deal, and this is back again before they were fundless sponsors back then, right?
Hmm.
But um, uh, no McGuire Woods Conference. So and I had come back to Dallas. So after 2 years in Tampa, we had things to the point where kind of the administrative part of the business could be run
Remotely.
remotely. And so I'd come back to Dallas to be with my family, and was still going to Tampa some. But um, anyway, my friend Jim calls me up and is like, "Hey, let's have lunch." And I'm like, "Great." And so he brings his business partner Robert, and they spend the entire lunch quizzing me about powder coating. And finally, at the end of it, I'm like, guys, I own a powder coating company. I'm not this interested in powder coating. Like, what's up? And they explain. They're like, well, we have a set of private equity firms that are invested in our deals,
Mm-hmm.
and one of those firms has reached out to us because they have an asset that's underperforming, and they want us. It's in Dallas, and they want us to take a look at it from an operational perspective, just to kind of give them a readout.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't. I mean, we can do all the stuff, but we don't have any powder coating expertise.
Mm-hmm.
So we're kind of hoping that you would join us and just kind of take a look at powder coating.
Right.
And so yeah, that was it was kind of the deal. It was I think we were losing $50,000 a month, give or take, and it was a really, really nice powder coating operation. They had a plating operation as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, long story short, we put together a turnaround plan. We presented it to the PE firm, and we worked out a deal with them to basically just, I think we wrote them a check for a combined. I think each of us put in $400 or $100 for a grand total of 400.
Right.
Now we also took a pretty big slug of debt, so
mm-hmm.
It wasn't free, but
right.
No PGs and blah blah blah. So we worked out a deal financially with them to take it over, and I gave myself 60 days to get
Execute.
to break even, and we made it in 45.
Yeah.
And then we had a whole. They were factoring invoices, so we had this giant factoring mountain or hole that we had to dig out of. Don't ever factor your invoices, though, for the love of God. That you talk about heroin. That
it's a whole another drug of its
anyway.
own. Yeah.
So we kind of got dug out of that hole,
mm-hmm.
and then the market kind of turned against us. It was just a downturn. I mean, it happens, right? And we were struggling, and we were praying about, listen, Lord, we need a customer. We need we need some revenue, or this is going to start getting ugly again. And yeah, it's a Friday, probably 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm sitting in my office, and I don't really like having receptionists or whatever, but we did in this particular facility, and so Lupita comes down and says, Marvin, there's somebody here from, and she named the company.
Right.
And this was a company that, they're huge. And we've been trying to land them as a customer for ages.
Right.
And there's somebody here from this company.
Mm-hmm.
Like, wow, okay, bring them. Like, come on. And so this guy shows up in my office, and
they're hemorrhaging money at this point, I believe, right? Like,
well, no, they're lying down. So they're a manufacturing company, right? They manufacture parts for the aviation industry, and they're down. Mm-hmm. And he says we're lying down, but you're still on our approved vendor list. And I said, okay. He says your competitor, who we've been using for years and years, is holding our, they've failed their vendor certification, right? Vendor certifications are huge in regulated industry, right? Mm-hmm. So they've failed their vendor certification. We've actually found out that they've been, I don't know exactly what the deal was, but basically they'd not been compliant for quite a while.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't like they just sort of, the investigation had shown that
right.
Anyway. So he's like, and we don't have another, you're our only solution. Mm-hmm. And we're going to have to requalify you, right? But the first thing I need is to get our parts. And I'm like, okay. So we jump in one of our trucks and we drive over. Mm-hmm. And I sit in the truck because they know me, right? So I just sit there, backed into the dock. and he goes in and somehow gets their parts loaded onto the truck, sort of without anybody knowing.
Wow.
And he walks, once they're on the truck, I kind of pull out, and he goes in the front door and tells them what's going on, gets back in the truck, and we go back to the shop. And by this point, it's probably 1:00 in the afternoon or whatever. And he's like, okay, well, this is what we got to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got my team together. Well, I told my team what was going on before we left. And so they're already prepping.
Mm-hmm.
We get everybody together, and we kind of lay out the plan. And he's like, we have to have, because now we've got the parts. He's like, we have to have these parts finished by Monday morning, 8 a.m.
Mm-hmm. And it's Friday night or Friday evening.
It's Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
And but we've got to run all these qualification panels and whatever first, right? So we lay out a plan, and sure enough, we can do it, but we're going to work 48, whatever it is, 60 straight hours for that at that point, whatever it's going to be, right?
Yeah.
And so we set up shifts, and so people could go home and sleep. And I think my GM, the guy who ran the facility for us, I don't think he went home. Like, I think he worked straight through.
Yeah.
He may have slept under his desk. Or something.
You had a warrior.
I think he worked straight through.
Within your.
And we ran there, and that saved us. Yeah. Like, they went from 0 to our biggest customer.
Not solving the customer concentration problem here either.
Well, no, it just gave us a new customer concentration problem.
Right.
But yeah, they never left, and that, that absolutely saved our ass. And so you do what you got to do.
Mm-hmm. How great is that? You're asking for God. Maybe I kind of want to close with talking a little bit about your faith and how it has played out, because I was brought up Christian as well, from South Korea, and then still continuing on my faith. But how did faith kind of play within these turbulent times, and just across just not only hardships but also during the good times?
Yeah. So, I think so my wife's grandmother lived to be 100, and she passed away, sort of a year ago or so. But she was just a fascinating human. She was completely lucid until the day that she died. She could have a conversation with anybody sort of about anything. And so she was, she was a fascinating woman to kind of sit down and talk to. But, one of the things I really learned from her was that, if you asked her, one of the things that she would say was gratitude, right? So, what she told us was, every morning she would wake up, and the first thing she would do is she would just be thankful. Not necessarily to God, quote unquote, or whatever, but just sort of this attitude of gratitude, Lord, thank you for the day, and for life, health, and an opportunity to, serve you today, or whatever it is, right? Just the idea of being grateful. And she had, far from 100 years, she saw a whole lot of different things. She lived through the Depression and the Second World War, and a couple of pretty ugly divorces and whatever. So it wasn't like she lived some sort of charmed life. But at 100 years old, her belief was that gratitude was an absolute key, right? So, I think in your faith journey, giving thanks, being thankful, especially in the good times, is a real key. And then I think also, especially in the good times, maintaining, humility. It's really easy when things are going well to start thinking, oh, yeah.
This was all planned,
I'm pretty good at this. Man, look at me. And no. So, and then, I remember, I was having a moment. This is when we were searching,
Mm-hmm.
kind of in that gap between when we passed and no, I'm sorry. No, well, it was after we went under contract. So, uh, but we're trying to get the deal done,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like I mentioned, and this is the beginning of 2011.
Mm-hmm.
And if you weren't in business at that time, banks were failing left and right.
Right.
And we
Tough to
had
do.
2 banks that were supposed to give us a loan
Mm-hmm.
fail
Oh.
during our loan process. So the first bank failed, the second
Mm.
bank failed, and
Then-
finally we got a loan.
Right.
Right. So it was dark. And even if they weren't failing, they were not falling all over themselves to make loans. Like the idea that you were actually going to get a loan was in no way, assured, right? So yeah, we had a great business. We had it under contract, and the due diligence looked fine. But whether we could get the money or not was anybody's guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd had this conversation with a friend of mine who was running he had his own really successful business, and I'm like, man, how come Sean's pulling this off and I can't, right? And so I'm having sort of a really low moment.
Right.
My wife and daughter are out, and I'm laying on our bed, and I'm just like, I don't know, having a massive pity party for myself, I guess.
Right.
And I just have this, I don't know if vision
Visceral
is the
emotion.
right word, but I just see in my mind that I'm standing at the edge of this canyon, right?
Okay.
Looks like the Grand Canyon or whatever.
Right.
And you can't see the bottom. It's all full of mist. It's sort of this very dystopian. If you've seen The Gorge on Netflix, like it kind of looks like that, right? Like
right on.
it's just absolutely
abyss.
impenetrable, right?
Yeah.
Some huge monster at the bottom of it or whatever, right? And I'm standing at the edge of it, and I need to get to the other side, right?
Uh-huh.
And I just hear take a step, and I'm like, I can't take a step. I'm just gonna, I'm gonna fall into the abyss, right? Take a step. And so in my dream or vision or whatever it is, right? Finally, I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna die one way or the other, so I might as well just go into the abyss, right? And so I take a step, and as I'm taking the step, this stone appears. Looks like a piece of a cobblestone bridge, right where my foot's going to go down, and my foot lands on that. I'm like, I mean, the rest of the bridge isn't there; it's just the first stone, right? And I hear take another step. I'm like, okay, well, like I'm going to go into the abyss this time, but fine, right? The next stone appears, and the next stone appears, and so I sort of walk across this chasm on this stone bridge that appears in front of me.
With the voice. That's
with the voice,
take another
right?
Step, take another step.
And so I don't know. I guess that was kind of the encouragement from the Lord that
you needed that desperate
that I
times.
needed at that moment. And somewhere along in that time, I also sort of audibly heard, I created you to be an owner and an entrepreneur, right? And I'm like, well, I'm not an owner and an entrepreneur. So kind of those two things, like, just, had far more moments of doubt, had far more, points at which it all could have gone wrong. But
right, because there was
those
no
two
blueprint.
things, just I just believe the Lord gave those things to me to kind of hang on to in those moments. And so I guess all of that's a really long answer to your, and I tell, sort of prospective entrepreneurs or, business owners or whatever, like it's not a comfortable journey. And I think that if you are a person of faith, then, being really clear with the Holy Spirit that this is the plan, purpose, and destiny for your life. If you are, there's nothing that'll stop you. Like, there will be grace, there will be peace, there will be favor, there will be blessing. I mean, there will be all the things, right? Again, not how you would script them,
Right.
Right? But
Just a linear
um,
line, right?
yeah, right. Um, but somehow or the other, it'll work out. Kind of like this bridge story.
Mhm.
Like I don't know where the stone
Where
appeared
it ends,
from.
yeah.
It just appeared,
Hmm.
right? Um, but if you don't have that, I don't know. Like I don't personally know how you get through it. I mean, I think some people just have incredible willpower,
Right.
or they
Resilience,
just
grit.
have sort of this reservoir of just
Power.
persistence or
Yeah.
tenacity or whatever it
Yeah.
is. They do it under, but yeah, um, if you, to me, if you're a person of faith, um, being really clear that this is
Your destiny
your
and what.
destiny, this is what you were created for,
Mhm.
makes all the difference.
Yeah. 100%. I think faith is, or just belief in general in yourself and the higher power has given you so much kind of power to kind of navigate through, especially with the belief in mind. Because without it, just relying on your own power, it's very tough. Um,
It's tough.
so that's
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah. Well, last question for you, Marvin, is
Yeah.
what are you currently kind of working on for the audience, or like what are you excited about now? Since now, obviously, I don't think we told the audience, but eventually, you did exit to a public company by merging the two together at I believe it was at a 7x multiple, so
Yeah.
around 21 million purchase price, which I was super happy to kind of like get on the emotional roller coaster with you, hearing all the journey. So, yeah, I know now you're currently working as a broker, but what are you currently most excited about?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So, being an investment banker, being a sell side M&A advisor, being a business broker, whatever, kind of whatever term you like
Hmm.
for that industry, um, in the lower middle market is really rewarding to me personally. Um, what I saw, we didn't talk about it, but in the course of kind of my career, both pre and post acquisition, um, of our own business, um, there was this thread of M&A kind of all the way through it, whether I was helping public, the company that I was working for sell off assets, or whether I was on the team that was doing acquisitions, for creative growth, or, whether it was us buying companies or merging them together in our metal finishing business. There was always kind of this thread. And what I saw over and over again was that, the sort of quote unquote Main Street business broker, um, often uh, does a pretty significant disservice to their seller.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just they just don't have, they seem to just not have the skill set or the desire or whatever. And there are plenty of good brokers out there, but
Mm-hmm.
there are plenty of not good
Bad apples too.
ones. And so that I got pretty frustrated about that, because I just saw sub um, optimal outcomes for so many business owners.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I started pursuing this path, and then found Raincatcher, and they were focused on this part of the market that I really, I don't want to sound sappy, but I had a heart for. Like I didn't want to go like if you have a $250 million enterprise value business, like there's no end of really high quality, super smart professionals
Mm-hmm.
who are going to fall all over themselves to
Right.
do a
To
great
serve
job for
you.
you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you're set, no
Mm-hmm.
worries, okay. But if you've got a $2.5 million enterprise value company,
Right.
like there's just a lot fewer of those folks
Mm-hmm.
floating around. Um, and so that's why I wanted to focus on lower middle market. And I mean, it's not like every business in the lower middle market is small. Most people think the lower middle market goes up to $100 million in enterprise value, or kind of $10 million in EBITDA or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some pretty good sized companies floating around in the
Right.
quote unquote lower middle market. But
Mm-hmm.
um, kind of like everything else, they're just not big enough to get the attention of the
The
top
smartest, the
15 or
finest,
20
yeah, the
investment banks,
sharpest.
right? And so that's where we play. And and bro, I love it. Like I don't know. I mean, I never look. I'm
Mm.
very very grateful for metal finishing. Like metal finishing was very very good to me.
Uh-huh.
But I promise you, not one day in the 9 years I own a metal finishing business did I wake up and go, "Oh, cool. We we,
I'm
we,
excited to go into
we
the
get to
warehouse.
we get to electrostatically charge plastic particles and see them adhere to metal, and then we get to
Right.
bake them at 400 degrees, and
Mm.
oh, it's just going to be a great day. I can't wait. Like how come
And
my alarm didn't go off at 3:30?
that's so good.
It just never happened,
Right.
right? But I do. I mean, not that I want my alarm going off at 3:30 every morning, but that is how I feel about this. Like I'm really
Wow.
super excited to talk to business owners, to talk to buyers,
Hmm.
to talk to bankers, to help people figure out, what their business is worth,
Mm.
and to run a process for them where the market gives them some feedback. And, if we do things right, you know, surfaces multiple buyers who are going to
Hmm.
bid for the business, and then, make sure that they, no business, no business, acquisition dies when you're looking for a buyer. I mean, unless you just find none.
Yeah.
But I mean, they die in due diligence,
Mhm.
right? And so making sure that the due diligence process is
Smooth sailing.
solid,
Mhm.
and that whatever the issues are, they get surfaced, and they don't get found, by the buyer, that we disclose them up front. I mean, all the things, right? Um, and and most of the business owners who are going to sell a company are only going to do this once,
Mm.
right?
It's their baby too, as
And
we're
it's their
coming full
baby, and
circle.
and
Yeah.
it's their life work, and it's their legacy, and it's all these different things. Like, and so in addition to it being a really emotional um,
Journey.
process,
Hmm.
it's also a very financially significant process for
For sure.
themselves and potentially their family.
Hmm.
Um, and you want it done, with the highest possible level of excellence. Um, and so, and just having the privilege to stand with people and walk through that process, and help, um, and be the expert.
Right.
I mean, I still have a ton to learn, but um, compared to someone who's never done it before,
Hmm.
uh, you know, having an expert along, and then having a team with you who has a whole bunch of different experience. And so when you run into something you've never seen before, you reach out to the other, managing directors at Raincatcher,
Hmm.
and get some input and some insight and some creativity and whatever. It's phenomenal. And then seeing them get the outcome, which
Hmm.
is, they get a
Life
deal
changing
done
for them.
successfully,
Right.
right? And it's not like selling a house or buying a
Hmm.
new car or any of the other kind of quote unquote major financial transactions that you do. It's so much more complicated,
Mm.
and there's so many nuances, and there's so much that goes into getting a transaction done successfully. Um, so again, for the business owners who are listening or whatever,
Mm.
I just engage a professional, like
Yeah.
vet them, make sure they're FINRA licensed. It's not a requirement, but it is a bar that if someone has cleared that, at least gives you some kind of
Confidence.
measure.
Mm.
Series 79 or series 82, something like that.
Mm.
And then, but yeah, you have a professional advising you on this journey.
Mm.
Um, and because it's not it's not straightforward.
Mm.
There's a lot of nuance getting it.
For sure.
So
Wonderful. Well, Marvin, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and this morning as well. So I think that was beautiful. So I'll attach, obviously, if anyone wants to reach out to Marvin and at
please,
Raincatcher, I'll be able to do that. So thank you, Marvin.
thanks, David. Talk soon.